Hello friends, it's Shari. Today I have a fun Independence Day card to share, so happy Independence Day to all our US friends. Today I'll be combining some hot foil with my little scene and my big bold sentiment. So I'm starting out with the hot foil fireworks and I'm placing them on to my glimmer platform. I will go put this back onto the base, which is off camera, and let it heat up and get ready. While it's getting ready and hot, I'm going to cut my foil to fit onto my cardstock. So I'm using some prism foil on Blue Jay cardstock, and I'm also going to be hot foiling on a piece of vellum, which you see I cut right there. I'm going to use some red foil on my vellum. So I'll just cut a little piece of that fits my vellum, and now my platform is ready to go. So I will put my foil with the pretty side facing towards the plates. Then I will layer on my cardstock. And then I can put the two plates that come with the glimmer system on top. So there are two of these, and we'll just layer those right on top. And then I'll run this through my platinum die cut machine. And now you can see I'll pull off that foil and I have these beautiful fireworks on that dark blue cardstock. And I will be using the coordinating dies to cut these out. Now I'm rearranging my fireworks to fit onto the strip of vellum that I cut. I'm just checking to make sure I have them close enough to fit my foil, and then I will go put this back onto the base to reheat. And while it reheats and gets back up to temperature, I'm going to line up the dies that match these foil fireworks and cut them out. So I'll just hold them in place with a little bit of removable tape, and then I have these beautiful fireworks on that dark blue. These are going to look really great on my dark blue sky. They're kind of going to blend in. Now my platform is ready to go again, so again I'm going to put that foil with the pretty side facing towards those plates, and then I will layer my vellum, which I'll be foiling onto the vellum, which is a really cool look, my two plates for the glimmer system, and I'll run that through my platinum machine. Then I can pull this away and you'll see I get these really cool shiny fireworks on that vellum. It is just so cool. Again, I'm going to cut these out with the coordinating dies so that I have some individual fireworks to sprinkle around my card. I think it's much easier to use the die for placing the fireworks than trying to foil directly onto the background because placement is a little bit hard when you can't see through your paper. Now for the sentiment, I'm using the Giant Happy Fall and the number 4 from Louis 123s to create my sentiment, and I'll be cutting these from some red sparkle cardstock and silver sparkle cardstock. So you can see there is my number 4, and then I just cut it to where I have the word happy, and I will trim off the pieces of the letters that spelled out fall because I really just want the word happy. There are a lot of these giant die sentiments that have the word happy in them. So you could use any of those to do this little trick of just getting the word happy. They're all slightly different. I did pick the one that was kind of the biggest happy because I really wanted it to fill my card. So I'm just trimming off those letters, kind of making sure that I shape the bottoms as if those letters in the word happy were continuous. So now I have happy and the number 4. And then I'm going to add a TH, so it says a fourth, using Henry's ABCs. I'm stamping this in Blue Jay ink on white cardstock, and I'm going to cut it out with a circle die. I'm going to tell you right now that I do all of this. I get the entire card finished, and then I pull this part off because I didn't like it. So you're going to see this through the whole process until the end. So there's my little TH so it can say fourth, and I'll just overlap the 4 onto the circle. And then here are the images I'm using. I've picked out some mice from a bunch of different sets. I have Dandy Day, Bubbles of Joy, Whoosh Kites, and Crazy Antics. And I'm just going to ink all of these up with my jet black ink, stamp them onto some white cardstock, and I will be coloring these with my Copic markers. Now, I didn't end up using one of the little mice because it just ended up being a little bit too full, but you'll see that here when we get to assembling the card. I'm starting out with that cute little picnic blanket, and I like to color this checkerboard in bright red. It's going to go perfect with my Independence Day theme for my card. So I'm just coloring in every other little square red, and then I'm going to pull in a really pale blue. So I still want it to look kind of red and white, but I don't want them to be stark white. So this really pale blue will kind of tone it down, but stick with the colors of my card. Of course, I have this slice of watermelon. This is from the Crazy Antics stamp set. You could substitute the watermelon for any little food. There's a bunch of food in that set because it's a picnic set. I also have this little popsicle. It is from that same set. I'll be putting that popsicle into the hand of the little mouse that's holding the kite string twine because obviously there's no kites in my scene today. I used a dark green for the watermelon rind and a light green for the inside part, and then I'm using that same light green for the grass. Now for my little mice, I am going to have 3 different gray-brown color combinations. So I'm starting out with some warm grays. You can see I have 2 shades and I just colored in some shadows, and now I'm blending out with the lighter shade of that W1. So I've colored a couple of the mice in this color scheme, and I've decided this little guy up here needs to be that too. I just like to have a little bit of variety in the color of my critters, especially when I'm going to have so many on my card. I don't want them all looking exactly the same. Now for these, I'm using the E70 and E71 combo. So again, just as before, some simple shadows with that darker shade and then blending out with the lighter shade. I'm coloring this little mouse here in those browns. I do really like when I have 2 mice together like this to color them different because I think it makes each mouse stand out a little bit from the other one. I have this cute little, I'm going to call him Yay Mouse number 2 because there is a Yay Mouse in You Autumn Know, and this one is from Whoosh Kite, so they're both really happy. Now I'm using some neutral grays for a third tone of neutral colors. Now this one that I'm coloring here that's looking up towards the left, I don't end up using that one on the card. I actually just tuck him inside, but it was a little too full of mice and I couldn't find a good place for him in my scene. So you'll see that when I assemble all the mice together. So now that they're all colored, I can color in their ears, which I have in R11, and I'm just coloring all their ears and their noses with this same color. And then their bellies, and I like to use an E000 and just some little flecks of color up from the top and bottom of their bellies. Now I can use the coordinating dies to cut them all out, and then I'll have all my cute little mice for my card. So I'll just line them up, hold them in place with some low tack tape, and now I have all my little images ready for my card. So I'll just set these aside because I'm going to work on the background or the sky of my card. Again, I have that Blue Jay cardstock and I'm cutting it to 4¼ by 5½. This is going to be the background of my little scene. Now for the ground, I wanted to keep it kind of dark because this is a nighttime scene. We have fireworks, so I'm actually using some rainforest cardstock for my ground. I've just cut it to 5½ inches wide, and then I'm going to cut the edge with one of the stitched hillside dies. And now I can figure out how tall I want to make it. It is much easier to me to cut the edge and then trim it down versus trying to figure that out straight out the gate. So I am putting my little pieces here to make sure that this is kind of low enough to where all the sentiment is up in the sky, and that looks pretty good. So I kind of know where I need to trim this down. Now for my sky, I want to add some texture and some differences in color. So I have some black soot distress oxide ink, and I'm just dusting the top and the edges with that black ink to kind of give it a little vignette look. So it's a little darker on the edges. Not too much black, I still want this mostly to be blue. And then I'm pulling out my white metallic watercolor. I'm going to flick it off a block so my splatters are really small and delicate. And this just gives the look of stars in a night sky. You can see how small those little flecks are. A lot of this will be covered up with my fireworks, but that little extra added detail just adds some nice shimmer to the background. Now that those little flecks of paint are dry, I can add this to a card base. And I'm just going to use my adhesive eraser to get off any adhesive that kind of went over the edge. For the ground, I am going to pop this up with some foam tape, line this up right along the bottom, and now I have this dimensional ground across the bottom, and this is where all my little mice are going to sit. Now I'm figuring out my placement of my fireworks. So here's the really cool look with these fireworks that I put on the Blue Jay cardstock. They kind of disappear in the sky, and it looks as if I did foil them directly onto that background. But of course, I have much more control about where I put them when I die cut them like this. So that's just a really fun look. You could do all the fireworks this way, but I did like the look of combining the cardstock and the vellum. So I'm putting my 3 fireworks that's on the cardstock down first. And where they overhang the edges, I will just trim off those little tails on the fireworks. And then now I can add the vellum ones. Now, because these are vellum and you'll see the adhesive through them, I'm going to use 2 different kinds of adhesive. I do have a vellum adhesive runner, so this is a really fine adhesive runner. I'm only putting this right in the center though, and then I'm also putting a dot of liquid glue. You could really see that liquid glue through the vellum, but don't worry, we're going to cover this up with a sparkly star. So I'm pulling out all the stars from the Hearts and Stars skinny tag die, and I'm cutting that same silver sparkle cardstock, so I have a bunch of stars to choose from. And I just think that it's really fun to finish off the center of these fireworks with a sparkly star. So I'll be doing that to all my vellum fireworks, and I'll leave the other ones just as they are, so they're kind of a little bit different. I'm adding that middle-sized one with a smaller star. And then I think that this little one's going to go down here towards the bottom to kind of fill in. I'm just kind of checking where everything goes. And yeah, I think down there at the bottom is perfect. I am going to go ahead and glue my 4 to that TH so it's just one piece. Again, as I said before, that little thing's gonna totally go away at the end. But now I can add my last little firework down towards the bottom and of course add a little star to the center. So I do need to trim off that one that's at the top where the vellum kind of overhangs a little bit. And there are all my shimmery foil fireworks. Now for my sentiment, I want this popped up as well. So I've put some thin foam strips on the back of the word happy. And then I will just center this up high in the sky. So I've got room for the 4th that was stuck to my hand. And I'm tucking this up under that A and the P. So I kind of peeled those up from their foam adhesive so this would fit under there. I'll tack those back down. And again, I'm going to pull all of this apart here in a little bit very carefully. It is salvageable. Now I can add my little mice. So I have these 2 from the Crazy Antics set having their little picnic, and they're gonna go over here. I also have this little yay mouse. Now to add these, because that ground is popped up with foam, I'm adding some foam squares to the back of their heads, and then I will use some liquid glue along the bottom of the picnic blanket. So that's glued directly to that hill at the bottom, and then their heads are supported with the foam adhesive. Now for this little guy on the right, I kind of want him to layer behind. So I'm going to actually use some thin foam squares. So these are not quite as thick, and that gives him dimension, but he's not at the same level as the mice in the foreground. Now I've got my little family of mice over here. So I have my Papa Mouse with the baby mouse, and I've already added that popsicle to his hand to cover up the kite strings. And then that was where I was kind of struggling to fit that last mouse in there, and I just decided I don't think he's gonna go in there. So I'll add this one with the popsicle, then I can add the mama and the baby over here. Again, me trying to fit this one in there. He's just not looking in the right direction. If he was looking the other way, I think I could fit him in, but if I put him over on the left, he's just gonna be staring off into space, which was a little strange. So I've added that little piece of grass, and then I'm pulling out my stars I cut earlier, and I'm just going to add a few of those around in the sky. I am avoiding the center of the other fireworks because I really like the way they look without the stars. So I'm just adding a few kind of sprinkled around. All right, I was finished. I was done. I looked at this card and then decided I didn't like that big white circle just staring at me in the center. So I'm carefully removing this from the middle. So now we're getting rid of that. And then I had an idea to spell out the TH and then of July. So it said the 4th of July using Harold's ABCs. And I'm just checking my spacing on my stamp there. I did shift the TH over slightly after checking out the spacing. You can see I have a Stitch sentiment banner cut from that same Blue Jay cardstock, and I'm going to white emboss this sentiment onto that little banner. I like the idea of the banner kind of disappearing on that background, and I think that will fix the thing I didn't like about the big white circle just staring me in the face. It was just very distracting from all the other cute and pretty things happening on the card. So I prepped this with an anti-static powder tool, stamped it in some clear ink, added my white embossing powder, and now I'm melting it with my heat tool so I get that nice bright white sentiment. And then I always like to take my chamois and just kind of wipe off the anti-static powder so that I don't have any white residue left. Now what I'm going to do is trim this off. So I'm trimming it off so it will be hidden under the 4. I will add some foam squares to the back so it's popped up just like the happy and the number 4. And then I'm going to tuck that end that I cut right behind that vertical part of the 4. I'm going to shift it over just a little bit. And once I have it in place, I can kind of tack down all those little pieces that I pulled up earlier and just fix the parts where I removed the white circle. And I just think that this looks so much better. I am adding some glitter to my popsicle so it looks nice and icy and shiny. And I also added some to the rind of the watermelon. And then here is my finished card. I think it turned out so cute. I'm really happy with the design change to pull that white circle out and add the little banner, and I really love those foil fireworks. There's lots of sparkle on this card. I hope this has inspired you to pull out those foiling plates and make a really fun card. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.